Hey,
There are
yo,
some
I heard
diseases.
that last one. A lot of you niggas is sick. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of y'all niggas be making jokes. There's truth in all jokes.
Caused by prions, a type of infectious protein, for which there is no known cure. Prions accumulate in your brain and damage your nerve cells irreversibly, leading to seizures, loss of memory and speech, blindness, changes in personality and loss of mobility. They kill off brain cells and create literal holes in your brain. Once symptoms start showing, most people die within a year. Some people are believed to have been infected by eating infected meat. There could be a gamma ray burst coming for us and we wouldn't know until we all got literally obliterated from existence. Also, the universe is so large that not a single thing that anyone does will matter, not a thing.
Not a single thing anybody does will ever matter. That's crazy. TK, you make gay jokes?
All times, we could be surrounded by fourth-dimensional beings. But we just can't see or detect them in any way because we live in a third dimension. They could be observing and studying us at this very moment.
Them niggas be watching y'all beat y'all meat.
And perhaps the reason why we haven't found any aliens yet is because they are fourth-dimensional beings. Because of the cellular makeup of our eyes, we see better in low-contrast light in the periphery of our vision. The way the cells work means they have a much lower activation, so in the dark or between very minute monochromatic differences you will see better out of the corner of your eye than your central vision, which is more geared to complexity and color. So with that in mind, theoretically, if there was something you could make out in the corner of your eye but not visible when you look directly at it, it could really be there.
Y'all ever see something in the corner of your eye and you look and there's nothing there? That shit's crazy. Nah, that's crazy as fuck. Oh my god, that's crazy.
When a brown recluse spider bites you, your skin will often start to rot around the bite. This is only in very rare cases and often with immunocompromised patients. Also, many pictures you see online are actually staph infections. The side effect of most bites is simply a hard welt that doesn't appear to heal well for weeks where the skin necrotized. Anything worse and you can go get a shot from the walk-in to cure it. Most people in the southern US have been bitten by a brown recluse at least once and don't even know it. There is a very high chance aliens could be far more technologically advanced than us and we would be facing extinction if they found us. And yet, we are trying to find them. If aliens are watching us, they are seeing us in however many light years away they are in the past. If they are 65 million light years away, they are looking at dinosaurs. Squirrels sometimes feed off of animal carcasses. Most animals will eat other animals. You can find videos of herbivores eating meat all over the internet. Like the video of a cow just swooping a baby chick on a single swoop. Hardcore. If someone falls from a building tall enough, then when they hit the ground their bones will crack and break under their weight, and their organs will explode. I think their guts will also come out of their mouth and anus as well. That firefighter documentary that accidentally captured the only footage of the first plane hit on September 11th mentioned this. There's a moment when they're on the ground floor of one of the towers before it collapsed, and you can hear these incredibly loud bangs. The sound was coming from jumpers hitting the concrete, sounded like gunshots. Horrible. There is a small parasitic fish called the kandira that can swim up your penis and latch on to eat it from the inside. It lives in the Amazon. Some animals, notably Tasmanian devils, have a cancer that can spread between the species through bodily fluid contact. Imagine that in humans. Diamond dust is a horrifying poison. When ingested, your body is unable to round off the sharp edges like it can with glass. It will cling to your insides, the muscle movements of your guts will scrape your insides, the dust particles will get pushed deeper and deeper until you die of internal bleeding. It takes months to die of this and you will be in immense pain. Once inside of you there's nothing that can be done anymore. When a Brazilian wandering spider bites a male, it can deliver long, painful erections lasting hours on end. They're deadly, but yes, this can happen before death. From what I know, it's less of an erection, and more of your penis swelling with painful pressure like a boil, as the hemotoxic effects cause a massive spike in blood flow. But I mean, if you're into biochemical pee-pee and ball torture, you do boo. There is a biological weapon that consists in a virus that, if released, would utterly kill the entire human population. and presumably a ridiculously high percentage of all the living things on Earth. This massacre is just a slight mistake away from happening. Romberg's disease can cause all tissues of half your face to spontaneously shrink. This includes bone. Chick culling is the process of killing newly hatched chicks for which the intensive animal farming industry has no use. It occurs in all industrialized egg production, whether free-range, organic, or battery cage, including that of the UK and US. Because male chickens do not lay eggs, and only those on breeding programs are required to fertilize eggs, they are considered redundant to the egg-laying industries and are usually killed shortly after being sexed, which occurs after they hatch. Many methods of culling do not involve anesthetics and include cervical dislocation, asphyxiation by carbon dioxide and maceration using a high-speed grinder. Asphyxiation is the primary method in the United Kingdom, while maceration is the primary method in the United States. By 2020, U.S. producers expect to sex the eggs before they hatch, so male eggs can be culled. There are billions of people on the world.
If you really think about it, humans are fucked. Cause imagine what we're doing to animals, bro. Like them things have feelings, bro. But ooh, its bacon tastes good. Bacon's so fire. Listen.
Meaning that there are people who you won't even know exist.
Bacon is
they will
fire.
live their own independent lives without ever seeing or hearing about you, and you will live without.
There are billions of people on the world, meaning that there are people who you won't even know exist.
Without ever knowing of their existence. In the 60s there was an experiment to attempt to teach dolphins to comprehend English. Even going as far as to attempt to teach it to speak English itself. The experiment went south when one of the people working on the experiment, Margaret Howell of Odd, started having sex with a dolphin named Peter, something she claims the dolphin initiated. At the same time of this, one of the other people involved, neurologist John C. Lilly, was given the go-ahead to start experimenting with LSD, and so decided to also use LSD on the dolphin. Due to a gigantic cut in funding, they were forced to move, and the dolphin was kept in horrible conditions, and taken away from his trainer buddy Margaret and so committed suicide by drowning itself.
That's crazy.
Humanity is constantly on the edge of being wiped out. Whether it be from nukes or from the Yellowstone supervolcano. It could happen at any moment and there'd be nothing anybody can do about it. When a Komodo dragon bites you, it sends a complex jolt of venom and extremely nasty bacteria under your skin. They don't even own toothbrushes in most cases. These guys can't move very fast, but they don't have to, because after you bail out to get away from the giant lizard, your own adrenaline sends the toxins racing through your veins, and in a few hours you will be twitching your last, sicker than you ever believed possible. The Komodo dragon casually follows your tracks in the sand and gulps you down like a Pop-Tart while you watch helplessly. You're welcome. Japanese giant hornets exist. They have 6-centimeter wingspans and prey on honeybees. They can kill up to 40 bees per minute, and they feed on the larvae once all the adult bees are dead. Oh, and their venom is potent enough that 10 stings is serious enough to require hospitalization, and the stings can literally melt your flesh in the area around the injury, creating a hole. It's obviously extremely painful. The fact that the government has pre-recorded broadcasts in cases of emergencies, including what to do if aliens attack. In the US at least, the act of eating human flesh itself is legal. The illegal part comes in the harvesting of human flesh. However, if your victim is willing, is alive at the time you carve from them, and is alive after, then that arm or whatever you took off is fair game to eat, and it's not illegal. And there is a story of a guy who lost a foot and then made tacos out of the meat. I'm not linking it. You're able to bite off your own fingers just like carrots. There's an instinctive response in your brain to refrain from biting it off if you try this. So even though your fingers are similar to carrots in that manner, it's much harder for you to tell yourself to bite your fingers off. The cause of death from
You know what's crazy? I read that somewhere. That the force it takes to bite a carrot, you could take your fingers off. But there's something in your brain that stops you. That's crazy.
Crucifixion is actually suffocation, not blood loss. The nail. would not go through the hands as depicted with Jesus, but between the bones in the forearm near the wrist, where the bone has a gap. Then one nail was used through both heels of the feet so that the person's legs were slightly bent off to one side. This puts all of their weight on their diaphragm. The only way to relieve the weight and breathe is to stand on the nailed feet. They can survive a couple days before their legs get too exhausted to stand. If the people crucifying him or want him to die quicker, they would break their knees so they couldn't stand.
People are fucked. Yo, you know how in a terrible way you're held up like this and you can't breathe, nigga. Like,
Serial killer Joe Matheny owned a food stand and sold burgers that combined animal meat with the flesh of his victims to unsuspecting customers. A horror movie called The Bay is about a parasite that takes over the body of humans. It is very loosely based on an actual parasite that severs the blood vessels of fishes' tongues, causing the tongue to fall out, and it attaches itself to the stub, becoming the fish's new tongue. The pictures are pretty disturbing. The entire Fermi paradox. Basically, it states that there is some reason why we haven't contacted or been contacted by alien life. A few of my favorite hypotheses are: all intelligent life seeks to destroy others, everyone is listening but no one is transmitting, Earth is being deliberately left alone, just to observe us in our natural habitat. Then of course there is the great filter, which says that something out there is killing off civilizations before they are advanced enough for interstellar communication. Wendy Capet.
See, okay, shit like that, I like to hear, because it's like, damn. there could be something out there, you feel me, that's waiting just till we get strong enough to, like, hey, relax, nigga, y'all doing the most. Nigga said, damn.
Potated. You are still alive for about 3 more seconds before dying. That one day all the stars in the universe will exhaust all their fuel, leaving the entire universe cold and dark forever. When someone is partly crushed by something extremely heavy, like if a giant beam fell on the lower torso of a person, that person won't die. The heavy weight cuts off the circulation, causing only a few ounces of blood to seep out. However, once the weight is removed, the person dies almost instantly. All the blood gushes out like a popped red water balloon. A person skinned alive, if treated for pain or blood loss, will die of hypothermia because skin is a big part of regulating body temperature. Hisashi Ouchi received the highest dose of radiation ever observed in a human. He went through horrible effects of radiation poisoning, some of which had never been observed. Internal organs shutting down, white blood cell count near zero, complete elimination of his DNA. Perhaps the most disturbing effect was that his skin began to peel and rot. The doctors tried to perform skin grafts, but due to fluids leaking from his pores, the grafts wouldn't take. On day 59 of his treatment, his heart stopped 3 times in 49 minutes, causing severe damage to his brain and kidneys. He requested many times to be allowed to die, and said he didn't want to be a guinea pig anymore. He was kept alive for 83 days, partly due to his family's request, partly due to the opportunity to research radiation poisoning. In his final days, he was described as a rotting corpse with a beating heart. It's very rare, but sometimes it's possible for a woman's body to absorb an ectopic pregnancy. The body calcifies the fetus to prevent it from decomposition, and it eventually turns to stone and is not usually discovered until many years later. This is known as a lithopedion or stone baby. Also, there's a phenomenon called post-mortem fetal extrusion, aka coffin birth. This sometimes occurs when a pregnant woman is buried. The buildup of gases in her body during decomposition can push the fetus out of the vagina after burial. Obviously this is nearly impossible nowadays with modern medicine and post-mortem examinations, but this was much more common over 100 years ago. Pool drains are literally powerful enough to suck your organs out of your body. It's one of the grisliest way people have been killed. Thanks for listening to Radio TTS. Hit the subscribe button and warning. This content may be upsetting or disturbing to some audiences. At any moment a nearby star could possibly become a gamma-ray burster and destroy the Earth. What's a very disturbing fact almost nobody knows? Due to fresh drinking water being so scarce on the Galapagos Islands, some bird species, such as the Galapagos hawk, have adapted by drinking the blood of other animals. Wild cats get most of their moisture from their prey and rarely drink water. According to the FBI, over 40% of murders go unsolved. Meaning if you get killed, there's a pretty good chance the person who killed you will not spend a day in jail. I think about the likelihood of a murder being solved in the small town where I live sometimes. For example, say when 911 gets called after the discovery, it's not going to be some TV CSI scene where the detective is like, "Ah. But what do I see here? This hair is from a rare breed of Mexican cat that's only sold as one exotic breed pet shop," and then they go on to check sale records and track down the killer. Here, it would be more like, our one and only, fat cop shows up after about an hour or so, and just sort of bumbles around contaminating the hell out of any possible evidence, not doing any good at all. And if by chance a larger department actually stepped in to do some investigating, the scene would be garbage. I could murder all day. A toddler's adult teeth are right below their eyes. I just looked up a picture of a toddler's skull and all I gotta say is what the actual hell.
Nigga, we're fucking aliens. What the fuck is this? What? I was curious.
Hell. Later in life, bone fills that area in. The bones growing are what push the adult teeth down and into the mouth. The Romans used to torture people by having goats lick their feet. Goats like salt, so they would soak their feet in salt water. Eventually the goat's tongue was rough enough that the skin would wear away, then you'd have a wound with salt trickling in. It used to be believed that babies as old as 15 months couldn't feel pain. As a result, doctors would perform surgery without anesthesia. Doctors used muscle relaxants on the infants to prevent squirming, essentially paralyzing the babies for the duration of the procedure. How long ago was this? Reports indicate that this continued up until the 1980s. The dolphin who played Flipper committed suicide. Kathy, a bottlenose dolphin, passed away in 1970 in her trainer Richard O'Barry's arms. She swam toward him and finally sunk to the bottom of the tank. At the end of her career, Kathy was put into a small, isolated tank at the Miami Sea Aquarium where many believe she was depressed. O'Barry firmly believes that Kathy had committed suicide. It's pretty easy to create false memories. This is why memories brought back through therapeutic hypnosis treatments, in attempt to uncover how the patient experienced trauma, don't hold up in court. Your mind can just make up something that never happened or didn't happen quite how you remember. There's a really interesting study where scientists basically coerced people into remembering things that never happened to them. If I can find, I'll link it.
That's crazy.
A vitamin D deficiency can make you suicidal, and deficiencies among adults is very common. Like more than 50% of the population in the US. My vitamin D number was single digit when I went to see my doctor because I felt depressed. I now take a big weekly dose along with diet change and sunlight to feel normal. If I hadn't gone to the doctor when I did, I might not have been able to face another winter. Approximately 2,100 children are reported missing every day in the US, or one every 41 seconds. On the bright side, most will be returned unharmed. On the bleak side, the survival rate very rapidly declines over time. On the even bleaker side, in the cases of missing young adult men in the US, there's fair chance a missing individual will be ruled deceased after a rather short search with minimal evidence. Even if no body is found, generally it's labeled as deceased due to natural causes, i.e. drowning in any nearby source of water, getting lost in any nearby woods, just getting lost anywhere and dying. After which the search is completely abandoned. When a woman with breast implants is cremated, the implants will melt into goo. It drips to the bottom of the furnace, and needs to be cleaned up once cooled. While pacemakers have to be removed and metal implants just stay in and get tossed after.
Damn.
At any
Been
moment a
before
nearby
months.
star could possibly become a gamma-ray burster, and point a jet of radiation at the Earth that would vaporize us instantly. Math says a gamma-ray burster located 100 light-years away, that aimed at us directly would generate the energy of 100 Hiroshima bombs per square mile across the entire exposed surface of the Earth. Anything caught in this blast directly would be vaporized instantly. It would also instantly boil the oceans and rip the atmosphere off the planet. It would end all life and leave the Earth a charred cinder in space. And it is 100% impossible to see one coming, since it's moving at the speed of light, Because gamma rays are light.
But at that point, you wouldn't even feel it. It would just happen. And then boom. Nobody would know. It would just happen. So it's like, that's not even like scary, cool, but like everybody would just get hit. And at that point, you can't really do shit. So fuck am I tripping off this shit for? You feel me? You would literally die instantly. Like, as I'm saying this, and everything would just stop. It's not like half of the earth would get hit and then over time. No, the whole thing would just snap.
In child porn cases, someone has to actually watch the video beginning to end so they can testify about it in court to seal a conviction.
Lord Darkskin, appreciate Twitch Prime. Anders, appreciate it 4 months.
A friend of mine works for the federal government and his job each day is to watch child pornography so that they can prove that the person was in fact creating or distributing child porn. It's a messed up job. He has to do evaluations every once in a while to make sure he's still fit. He does say that statistically most people in the position only last 3 years. They get paid horribly to do this job, so there's not much incentive to stay. I know for him each time they catch a person makes it very well worth it for him. On average, 30 people die in the US annually in elevator-related incidents. If you really want to lose sleep at night, consider elevators at Houston's St. Joseph Hospital, which have a history of injuring people, including decapitation of one surgical resident in 2003. As Nikaido stepped onto the elevator, the doors closed, pinning his shoulders. He tried to pull back and he couldn't. The doors wouldn't open. She wasn't able to find the door open button before the elevator started moving upward. When you get on an elevator, if it closes on you, it's supposed to open back up, she told officers. There wasn't any of that. There was no hesitation. The doors shut and it went. Nikaido struggled, trying to shrug out of the elevator, or possibly pull himself inside, she said, but the elevator kept moving upward. The ceiling sliced off most of his head. His left ear, lower lip, teeth and jaw were still attached to his body, which fell to the bottom of the elevator shaft, as the elevator continued moving upward. Encephalitis lethargica causes you to slowly survive, but not live. After bouts of deep sleep, where patients can be woken very easily, but fall immediately back into the deep sleep, they're left with post-encephalitis symptoms. The main one being that their minds are fully aware and conscious, but they can't physically function, a bit like locked-in syndrome, and they display extreme apathy. They even know they're displaying apathy but can't express any emotions. So they're completely stuck, until someone throws a ball at them, which they then can immediately catch. Or until someone holds their hand and walks alongside them, then they can suddenly walk. Otherwise nothing. So bizarre.
What? Nate said TK for the love of fucking God.
You are more likely to die on your way to buy a lottery ticket than you are to win the lottery. If you went out right now to get a ticket, you're more likely to die en route than to buy the winning ticket, as the number of people who died en route to get a ticket is most likely higher than the number of winners. Non-avian dinosaurs did not go extinct immediately at the asteroid strike. There would have been a period when the survivors kept on, slowly declining in number, starving to death before being able to mate and produce offspring. Too bad they couldn't have hung around long enough to catch a ride on the Ark. Bayer, the pharmaceutical company, used to be called IG Farben, and were the ones who produced the Zyklon B chemical the Nazis used in the gas chambers of the concentration camps. Heroin was also a brand name trademarked by Bayer. It was supposed to be a cough suppressant. In the 80s, Bayer discovered that a large portion of their US plasma stockpile was contaminated with HIV. They were ordered to destroy it. Instead, they shipped it overseas to Asia, Africa, Europe and the Middle East and sold it. This resulted in at least 10,000 new direct cases of HIV. That is in addition to the 8,000 new cases in the US and Canada that spring before the contamination was discovered. When asked why they didn't destroy the stockpile, they said that patients don't trust the new medicine and there wasn't enough new medicine to go around, so they had to sell the old stuff.
That's why the fucking pharmaceutical industry shouldn't be for profit, nigga. Cause niggas have no fucking morals when it comes to money.
There's over 200 frozen dead bodies on Mount Everest and they're used as waypoints for other climbers. And human waste. There's so much human waste from people climbing Everest that it's tainted the local water supply of villages at the base of the mountain. Then there's that vegan woman Maria Stridham, who wanted to prove she could do it without meat in her diet. She died on the attempt. If you get bitten by a human, You absolutely have to go to the hospital right away because the amount of deadly bacteria in any given person's mouth could actually kill you if it enters your bloodstream. I had a friend who was bitten by a crackhead and he didn't get to the hospital soon enough, so he ended up with many of his organs shutting down due to sepsis. By the way, the average adult male has a biting force high enough to rip someone's throat out with their teeth. As recently as the early 1800s, people ate parts of corpses, believing them to have medicinal properties. Blood, power ground up from the human skull, and human fat were all thought to be cures for various ailments. Arguably, it still goes on today, with the practice of consuming placenta for its dubious health benefits. There was a fad for eating mummies. It turns out that there's a limited supply of mummies, so people started making mummies for other people to eat. If you were to put the entire lifespan of the universe, from the Big Bang to the final heat death, onto a 24-hour clock, at the universe's current age we would not have reached the end of the first 30 seconds. If you were to go into the far future, past the point where there are no more solar systems, the planets have either been destroyed or become rogue planets, where there are no more galaxies, everything either being swallowed up by black holes or being ejected from the galaxy. No more anything of normal matter due to proton decay, and no more black holes due to Hawking radiation. Even here at this point, you would not have reached 12 o'clock on our universe clock. The universe will spend most of its life as a dark, cold, empty void. You would be unlikely to find a single surviving subatomic particle in an area the size of the current observable universe, until the background temperature reaches 0 Kelvin, at which time becomes meaningless in the universe. The first face transplant was for an 8-year-old girl named Scumtk, who got her entire face ripped off by getting her hair caught in a thresher in 1994. The parents came in with her face in 2 pieces in a plastic bag. The transplant was a success, and the girl grew up into studying medicine. And if you've ever wondered what a face torn off looks like, they have photos of it that aren't bloody, but very disturbing. Even if there are intelligent aliens, the universe is so massive and vast that due to the speed of light and physical limits the human race will most likely die alone. As a cancer researcher, I was fascinated to learn that the most common cancer is lung cancer. The majority of the patients were, of course, smokers. But that's not the worst part. The second biggest cause was secondhand smoking, usually from a close relative or spouse who is a smoker. So millions of people are unknowingly leading their relatives, children and spouse towards death because of their smoking habits. Minimum wage in Venezuela is $6.70 a month. That means that I, who don't have a particularly high salary where I live, Sweden, make about 5 Venezuelan monthly minimum wages per hour I work. Every day I work, I make about 40 Venezuelan months of pay. That's 3.33 yearly Venezuelan minimum wage salaries, for every day I work. And that said, the minimum wage in Venezuela was recently raised by over 300%. It was around $2 per month not long ago. So not long ago, I made about 11.4 yearly Venezuelan minimum wages each day I worked.
That's Scumtk sub?
In the 70s, Ford did a cost-benefit analysis and determined that their defective Pinto model would cause approximately 180 deaths, 180 injuries, and 2,100 damaged cars. They estimated the cost of lawsuits and vehicle repairs to be $49.5 million. On the other hand, they determined it would cost them $11 per car, $137 million, to fix the defect in the car to make it safer. Guess what they did? Yeah, they decided, what's 180 human lives compared to more money? Screw 'em. And boy, did they pay for it. The whole situation blew up, no pun intended, further than they expected, becoming a huge ordeal for the company. What's really sad is reading about some of the victims of the Pinto and their terrible deaths. Thanks for listening to Radio TTS.
Fucked up.
Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell for more disturbing facts that keep you awake at night. Find the Reddit facts playlist in the video description below. And do not Google the face of Scumtk. And please support Radio.
The ocean has been studied less intensively than the dark side of the moon. Covering 70% of the Earth's surface, experts think that only about 2 to 5% of our underwater world has been explored thoroughly. Check out these 9 unbelievable ocean mysteries. Number 9. Underwater falls. Voted one of the most beautiful places on Earth, Mauritius is an island nation in the Indian Ocean. On the southwestern tip of the island, you will find a fascinating illusion. When viewed from above, a runoff of sand and silt deposits creates the impression of an underwater waterfall. But did you know that there are actually real underwater waterfalls? 7 waterfalls have been discovered deep underwater. The tallest waterfall on Earth is not Angel Falls, but an underwater waterfall called Denmark Strait Cataract located in the Atlantic Ocean between Greenland and Iceland. It is the world's highest underwater waterfall, with water falling almost 11,500 feet, and it carries 175 million cubic feet of water per second. It is caused due to temperature differences in the water on either side of the strait. Cold water is denser than warm water, and the eastern side of the strait is a lot colder than the western side. Downward, there are huge...
This shit's ass. I watched this. I watched some of this. Like, I started this.
Water or something. What's your first name? Come on, Nick.
Watch another.
There's usually multiple larvae at a time that leave craters in the host's body. What very creepy fact will keep you up at night? I saw a news story on a woman with a rare type of epilepsy that causes her to see everything like a slideshow or a video game that gets 10 frames per second. She described watching cars drive by and saying they freeze in place for a moment and then snap into position further down the road over and over. Her entire life is played out in front of her eyes in still frames, and because of that she wears blinders or earmuffs because her senses are constantly contradicting one another and it overwhelms her. I can't imagine how horrifying it would be to experience life like she does. Somewhat recently, 2012, scientists discovered over 1,400 new species of bacteria living in the belly button. Everyone's belly button ecology is unique, added to the fingerprints and snowflakes list. In that same study, one volunteer's belly button harbored bacteria strands that had only ever been found in soil from Japan, where this man has never been. There is a rare genetic disease called fatal familial insomnia where over the course of months you cannot go or be put to sleep no matter what you take or what you do. The symptoms get progressively worse until finally you stay awake watching yourself go insane until you die from exhaustion. There is a guy by the name of Ricard Sajian who documented this genetic disease on YouTube, and with each video you can tell his mental state gets worse and worse. It eventually gets so bad that his last videos are just weird conspiracy theories and, as expected from a disease with no cure, he sadly passed away. Before he started suffering from it, since it can sit in your genetic code for years without you noticing, he was an artist. May he rest in peace. Indian followers of the Zoroastrianism don't bury or burn their dead. Instead they leave the bodies in special towers, exposed to the elements to be eaten by vultures. Unfortunately the vultures are now endangered, leaving the bodies to slowly rot. If you stare at the mirror in the dark long enough, your brain starts to make your eyes see things. Usually transforming you, or the room, into something horrifying, more usually monsters. This is called peripheral fading or the Troxler effect. Don't try this at home. There was a man from France, named Terrer, 1772 to 1798, who couldn't stop eating. By the time he was 17, his parents kicked him out. He was eating his own body weight in food daily at the time. When he enlisted in the army rations just couldn't satisfy him. Often, he would sneak out at night and search for offal in the garbage and the gutters. He was hospitalized, doctors trying to find a cure, but, at night he would raid the morgue. Scientists unable to stop his ability to eat almost anything began to study it. They'd feed him such random things as eels, he'd swallow whole, lizards, and so on. All of which, he ate alive. When a 14-month-old baby disappeared, he was chased from the hospital by an angry mob. He later died of tuberculosis. One reason that crows and ravens are associated with death is because they would often follow armies as they marched to battle. Being both carrion birds and extremely intelligent, They realized that a large group of armed men marching on one direction meant that there would be a tasty meal of corpses to eat soon afterwards. If you ever need two vertebrae fused in your spine, they will sometimes scrape bone out of a corpse and stick it in there to knit the bones together. I found this out when my spine surgeon said this will be your second discectomy, which means there might not be enough disc left to support the joint. So, when we get in there, if things are too unstable, we'll fuse the bones together with some donor bone. I then had the interesting experience of being anesthetized without knowing whether I'd wake up with a dead man's bones inside me. While most parents do what they can to prevent or stop their babies from crying, that's not always the case in Japan. That's because it's a 400-year-old Japanese tradition that if a sumo wrestler can make your baby cry, it means he or she will live a healthy life. During a special ceremony, parents hand over their infants to sumo wrestlers who bounce their precious dots up and down and sometimes even roar in their little faces to get the tears flowing. He's not a baby that cries much, but today he cried a lot for us and we are very happy about it, Mother Meishige said at a 2014 event. When your organs are taken out of your body for abdominal surgery, they don't get placed back in carefully or specifically. You just put all the organs back in and the body sorts itself out. On top of that, some people are born with a condition called situs inversus, in which all their organs are a mirror image of what is normal. Having this automatically disqualifies you from being in the military. If the heat death of the universe turns out to be correct trillions of years from now, rather than a big crunch, then it will reach a point of absolute entropy and time as we understand it will have no meaning. On a long enough timeline, once stars stop forming because gas and dust particles become too rare or scattered to form a sufficient mass to produce fusion, the existing stars will slowly, gradually, exit their main sequence and become red/hypergiants, then collapse to dwarf stars. Eventually even the dwarfs, the faintest light in the universe, will blink out, their matter consumed by black holes. Many trillions of years of Hawking radiation will bleed away even the black holes until everything reaches a state of unending changelessness. No physical processes will exist to mark the difference between one moment to the next. No biological or chemical reactions. No atoms and no movement and no light. Time as a linear concept will not exist because nothing will exist that could justify the presence or effects of time. A rat king is a phenomenon created when a...
You think the FBI took TK brain? Cause I like weird facts? Like, what the fuck? What is the purpose of life? Life is what you make it, nigga. This, if anything, this should tell you more than anything that this shit doesn't matter, so have fucking fun with it. You get one run at this shit anyways. Like, oh my god, nobody knows what's after, so fucking have fun with it, bro. Enjoy this shit.
Large group of rats become fused together by their tails via ice, dirt, hair, blood, or even feces. Encounters with this horrible phenomenon inspired some of humanity's greatest myths. Don't Google image search.
Don't tell me what to do. I ain't gonna show y'all, but I'm gonna look it up myself.
Inspired some of humanity's greatest myths. Don't Google image search. Vlad the Impaler was called that because he killed his enemies by placing them butt first on pointed poles that would slowly skewer them to death. He would also torture people by removing the skin from their legs, coating them in salt, and have goats lick the salt off. The guy was completely messed up. Postpartum depression can show up in a new mother virtually overnight. It can make them hallucinate or go into psychosis, making them think their baby is a demon or the Antichrist, for example. New mothers kill their own children because of postpartum depression more often than you might like to think. The more the mother knows it's a possibility, the better she'll be able to combat it if it arrives. My mother had it to a small extent when I was a baby, and her telling me about it was my first experience with it. She said she was feeding me and she looked down and my face had been replaced with some kind of demon. She immediately looked back up and closed her eyes, and when she looked back down I was back to normal. She had a background in psychology and was pretty familiar with the whole process, so luckily she was able to work through it. When anglerfish mate, the male literally deforms its body and fuses with the female, then they live together for the rest of their lives. You could also argue that the male isn't even truly alive after a certain point in this process as well. Once they latch onto the much larger female and begin to fuse, their internal organs also start to deteriorate. They have no blood flow of their own and are completely reliant on the female for nutrition and removal of waste produced by biological processes. The only organ that remains entirely intact are the gonads. So they basically become a pair of testicles that the female can use to fertilize her eggs whenever the need arises. Big companies like Target know and record when you're cheating on your partner. It tracks your path in the
Ain't no motherfucking way.
store, which aisles, what you are buying, etc., and uses an algorithm to predict what they are going to buy, so they send coupons based on that via email. They have so much data on their customers that they know if you're married or single based on your purchases. When they see that you're buying things like condoms as a married person, they make the assumption you're cheating. They want to know this so they don't accidentally advertise to you condoms, since you probably share a computer with your spouse, so they keep those
My niggas at
purchases
Target. My niggas at Target. Ooh-wee.
since you
Yes,
probably share a computer with
sir. These niggas like, hey man, I ain't trying to get caught up in that nigga shit. Target on timing. I love it. Target moving real devious. You know what? I always knew I liked shopping at Target versus like Walmart shit. I feel like Walmart be snitching on niggas. Target was like, nah, bro, we can't do this nigga like these.
with your spouse, so they keep those purchases secret. While filming the movie The Exorcist, many actors got injured, the set burned down, a priest was brought in several times to bless the set, and the actor who played Burke, Jack McGowan, died of influenza. Just so you guys know. The Exorcist, a supernatural horror film directed by William Friedkin, was based on the 1971 novel of the same name by William Peter Blatty, which was in turn inspired by the exorcism case of Roland Doe, a pseudonym given to the victim by the Catholic Church. The 1973 film portrays the demonic possession of a 12-year-old girl. The story revolves around how the mother of the child attempts to seek normalcy in her daughter's life with the help of two priests who conduct exorcism. From its onset, the film went through troubled waters. Prestigious directors not only turned down the film, but ominous events surrounded the year-long shoot. Nearly 9 people died who were associated with the production of the film, and a mysterious fire destroyed the set one weekend. People started to believe that the project itself were cursed. A priest was brought in, was wrapped up, the actor who played. It was not uncommon for families to take pictures with recently deceased relatives. This was done as one final moment with that person to honor them. We actually have some old family pictures like that. My dad told me that usually old pictures of people are not perfectly clear because people would still move a little bit during the time it took to take the photo. But if someone appears very clearly, i.e. they were sitting perfectly still, that might very likely be because they were dead when the photo was taken. Creeped me out for sure. Mathematically, it is possible that somewhere scattered around the universe exists a number of living beings that resemble you but with slight differences.
I was talking about this with somebody. Like, the chances are... Hold on.
Universe exists a number of living beings that resemble you but with slight differences. Technically they are not copies, but if one of these beings were to take your place, nobody would notice. Cotard's delusion is a rare psychiatric condition, severe cases of which cause the sufferer to wholeheartedly believe they are dead, putrefying, or simply do not exist. Some Cotard's patients refuse to eat, as they do not believe they need to, with one notable patient dying of starvation. Another woman once asked to be taken to a morgue, to be with the other dead people. When a person is electrocuted in the electric chair, they feel everything. They are fully aware of their bodies being fried as it happens in real time. One inmate who survived the first round of electrocution said it tasted like cold peanut butter. When it came to the first electrocution, They basically slow roasted the first inmate on the chair till he thankfully passed away, and the room where it took place stank of fried human flesh. As time went on, they were able to dial it into where it would cause the least amount of pain to the inmate, but the first few electrocutions were brutal. Botflies. The very fact that they exist is more than creepy. See, these little bastards are parasitic. By that I mean they bite an animal or human to inflict an open wound and proceed to inject their eggs into the wound. The larvae that hatch feed on the host, while the host is alive, until they mature enough to fly and continue the circle. Oh, and there's usually multiple larvae at a time that leave craters in the host's body. The children's story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin was based on a real event. Hamelin town records start with this event. The earliest written record is from the Town Chronicles in an entry from 1384 which states, "It is 100 years since our children left. No one know what or who took the children, but there's records of the entire town's children being taken."
Y'all know the story of the Pied Piper? Y'all know what that is? He basically had children follow him. He played his shit and like kidnapped all the kids.
The bodies of the sailors who died on the Edmund Fitzgerald are still down there, almost perfectly preserved, due to the water at that depth being just barely above freezing. Divers who have explored the wreckage have seen their bodies frozen in place to parts of the ship, and have come back reporting that they feel as if they were being followed during their time underwater. Photos were taken, but per the request of the crew's family, they have never been released to the public. Despite there being no bone, it's possible to break your penis, usually through rough fun. It can lead to erectile dysfunction, permanent penile curvature, and damage to the urethra. It's quite painful. The Kurds practice cracking their wiener, but not breaking it, which has led to a rise of penile practices in Iran. The RMS Titanic's sister ship, the HMHS Britannica A mine and sank. The captain decided to hold the lowering of the lifeboats and try to beach the ship on nearby Kia Island. He eventually ordered for the lifeboats to be lowered and stopped the ship's engines. However, before the order was given, a couple of lifeboats were launched while the ship was still moving. Some of these lifeboats on the port side moved towards the propellers, and what resulted was a bit of a blender situation, ultimately killing 30 people. Abraham Lincoln's personal guard went out for a drink a few hours before his assassination. He met a man there that was extremely jittery. The man was famed actor John Wilkes Booth. Eyewitnesses said the Booth was tense and wasn't sure he could do it. Nobody knew what he was going to do, but because he was such a famous actor, people helped him to calm his nerves. The personal guard and Booth had a few drinks together and soon left for the theater. Later that same night, Booth assassinated Abraham Lincoln while the personal guard was there on duty. Thanks for listening to Radio TTS. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell for more creepy facts. Click the right box for the facts playlist.
Alright, chat. Time to make some money.